Hey friends, welcome back to Confidence and Coffee, where we keep it real, raw, and a little bit caffeinated. I'm your host, Ashley Henriott, speaker, author, and your go-to hype girl for when life feels like a lot. Around here, we talk about things that keep you up at night. Self-doubt, fear, people-pleasing, faith, and finding your voice again, without the fluff. So grab your coffee, pull up a seat, and let's talk about stuff that actually matters. Hey, you guys, I'm so honored to be here with my new friend, James Twyman, who is just he has like this friendly vibe, and I'm so excited for you guys to also connect with him. He's patient, obviously, with my crazy life because here in Confidence and Coffee, it never really goes the way we plan for it to go. You guys, James is the big deal. He is it. And his new book, I Don't Know, Maybe I Love You, is amazing because it talks about, how to depolarize your family, right? Your relationships, your business and country and the world. And so we're going to be talking about that. You may know him actually international, like he's an international reputation of which we talked about a little bit of the peace troubadour. I got it. James, I'm so excited because you are a leader and you step into very dangerous, like war torn countries, like with a guitar, song, prayers, and like you unite millions of people around the world to calm the waters. And I know that I've heard of you from having like 24 moving, deeply powerful books on the New York Times bestseller list. Hello, and you're here on Confidence Coffee. James, I'm so honored to have you. Can you tell me why this book, though? Tell me kind of the story of what brought the vision of, I don't know, maybe I love you.
Sure, I would love to. And it's wonderful to be here on your program, Ashley. I already think even in your craziness, you were so charming. And I'm sure people love this show. So we're going to do our best here. Okay, so we all know that we live in a challenging time where things are more polarized than perhaps ever before. We've probably all lost relationships, friendships, whatever, because of what I like to call the pandemic of being right. Everyone wants to be right. And the attitude today, more so than ever before, is that if you agree with me on something, you're fine. But if you don't agree with me, you're out. And people are kicking people out of their lives because they support someone else or they have different ideas. And I wonder what happened to some of the manners that we were taught when we were in kindergarten, to be kind to one another, to listen to one another, to respect. These things seem to have gone out the window, maybe since COVID or before, but certainly has been amplified. So I'll tell you how the whole idea of this book started. By the way, I'll hold it up. So I don't know, maybe I love you. If you take out the comma of maybe, it sounds like maybe I love you. But no, I don't know, maybe I love you. So
Love
this is
you.
what happened. I was talking to my younger brother on the phone. My younger brother loves to argue with me. He often has a different position. And we were going on about something. I don't even remember what it was. Maybe it was the vaccine. He seemed to be winning the argument. So I said three things to him that changed everything. I said, Kenny, maybe I love you, man. And he said to me later, I hate when you do that. How can I keep the argument going when you do that? And I realized, yeah, that's right. When there's no one pushing back on you, you really can't keep the argument going. And so I started sharing this at my talks and lectures, and it was really sticking. I could see them days later and they'd be in a discussion and they would just go, I don't know, maybe I love you. At some point I need to write about this, but I had written 23 books at that point, and I said, I'm not going to write any more books. But then I'm also a musician. You mentioned the whole peace troubadour piece. We can talk about that later. But I was on a concert tour on the East Coast, and I was in the town of North Conway, New Hampshire. Went out to dinner with my friend Walt and his wife, Anne. I had not met Anne, and I found out that she owns a small to medium-sized publishing company. And I said, well, I'm not going to write any more books, but if I did, here's the one I would write. I told her the story I just mentioned here. And she said, if you write that book, I will publish it. I thought, okay, I guess I'm going to write this book. So I immediately went out to my van because I have a little travel van I travel in, and started writing that night. And I basically wrote the book as I traveled across the country on that tour, first down the East Coast and then driving all the way back to Portland, Oregon, as I talked to people, some of whom agreed with me, some of them did not. And to set the context, this was right before the 2024 election. So there are signs everywhere, there's energy everywhere. For example, the first morning when I was writing the book in this town of North Conway, there was this man who had Trump signs all over his car, and he was holding a big sign, waving at everyone who passed. The sign said, "Vote for Trump or else." I thought, well, I don't know what the or else is, but let's talk to this guy. And usually what would happen, I was not voting for Trump. I've learned a lot of lessons since then, but because of this book. But I wanted to at least hear his perspective and to give this whole, I don't know, maybe I love you a try. So I just began speaking to him. And instead of telling him what he should believe or telling him that he was wrong, I listened. And here's the point, Ashley. The truth is, I don't know. And neither do you, and neither do any of us. We have our opinions, we have what we believe, but none of us know for sure what needs to happen. So maybe if I listen to you, and maybe if I give you a chance to express yourself, maybe I'll learn something new that I did not consider before. But all I really know for sure is that the foundation of all of this must be love, it must be understanding and respect. So that was just the first story, but as I traveled across the country meeting so many more people, I began to realize that the only way to depolarize this country and the world is to start to practice all of the things that we learned in kindergarten.
Well, tell me a second, when you talk about depolarize, like what does that mean for those that don't know? And what does that look like in the market?
Yeah, good question. It used to be that you had people on the far left and you had people on the far right, and there was maybe 5% in each camp. But what has happened in recent years is, for many reasons, those numbers have been growing. For example, on social media, the algorithms are all set up to tell you what you already believe. So, for example, if you have a particular attitude toward the COVID vaccination, it's not going to give you the other side. It's going to continue to feed you all the experts, all the podcasts and videos that support what you already believe. So it's very easy to get in concrete and say, this must be true because everyone believes the same thing as I do. But these algorithms were not designed for that. So we get into our camp and we say, I must be right. That's what I call the pandemic of being right. And it forces us to become more and more polarized, to be on one side or the other. But I like to say that the tension of a rubber band is greatest right before it snaps. And there is this energy, and maybe this is what depolarization is. Depolarization is basically, let's come back together. Let's depolarize and realize that we have a lot more in common than we have apart. And if you don't mind, I'll give you one good example of that. As you mentioned, I've had the opportunity to travel to many countries at war, to share a concert of peace prayers from all the different traditions of the world. And when my first book came out back in 1996 or 1997, I received this very strange invitation from Saddam Hussein to come to Iraq and to perform the peace concert there. Now, it was obviously a propaganda move, but that's okay. So this was at a time when things were really very difficult, and it looked like we were heading toward another military excursion against Iraq. So I went over there as the peace troubadour, and they were very kind to me. They were very respectful. I asked, this is in 1997, so not everybody even had email, but I asked my agent to send out an email to about 300 people, asking them to be praying for peace in Iraq at the same time that I was doing this concert. Well, it was one of the first examples of a viral video. Millions of people ended up hearing about this and stopping to pray at that time. And for me, being there, it felt like it was raining prayer, raining peace. And all we know is that 3 days later, a peace accord was signed. And at least at that time, no bombs fell no one died. And the night after the concert, after I finished performing these peace songs, all we did was they had a big party for me, and we just sat around singing Simon and Garfunkel songs for hours. So we had a lot more in common than we thought. These people in Iraq who we would look at as the enemy. And I think that all those things that I was doing as the peace troubadour apply to today, because this country, especially the United States, has become so polarized that it's hard to talk to people, because if you don't agree with me, so many people say that's it. But maybe this movement that we're trying to start, the people becoming depolarized agents, maybe this is similar to what we did with that prayer vigil, where we're asking people to add their energy to become depolarizing agents, so we can start to move back in the same direction.
That's really, really good. I'm curious because you talk about the root and you talk about the connection with the political divide and this pandemic of needing to be right. I always said, this is off cuff, but I always said that people that have this strong passion, if we want to call it that, to be right, are really just people who are afraid of not understanding. And because they don't fully understand the truth, they make in their world their truth the only truth, the right truth. And they're not really open because they have a deep insecure within themselves. Like, my book's called Confidence is an Inside Job. And what I've learned about people is that they have these insecurities within themselves that they try to protect from others. And I just wonder if that feeds into that pandemic that you're talking about.
Oh,
Like, would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I believe that there are really only two emotions, love and fear. Everything else is a derivative of one of those. And
I agree.
yeah, when people, put their feet down and say this no matter what, it's really because they're afraid of the no matter what or the other possibilities. And it makes them feel insecure to consider the possibility that maybe there's another way of looking at this. And maybe if I listen to you and give you some respect, whether you agree with me or not, you see, this is not about agreeing with each other. We may finish a conversation like with the guy on the street there in North Conway. I didn't end up changing to his side and he didn't end up changing to my side. But we had a really good just conversation where we really heard each other. And we shook hands and we smiled, and it taught me the power of just those three simple things. I don't know, maybe, I love you. And if we begin to practice this, then that fear that we talked about begins to dissipate, and we begin to relax. The temperature goes down. I mean, it's really so simple if we just put it into practice.
Yeah. And I think what you're doing, this is a strong movement. And I know you've journeyed across the US, like, and other countries. And, you meet people who agree with you and you have the opinions that it's almost like opinions don't exist anymore, that disagree with you. I know one of the people that you describe in your book is your friend Vicky, I think is her name. And you say she's one of the most loving people you've ever known, but she considers herself a very strong supporter of Donald Trump. Like, what did you learn from her? And because of these different people that you meet, and the dynamic of what you do, is that like the one meeting, or are there other meetings that stand out to you, in your mind with your experience and from your viewpoint?
Well, that was definitely one of the pivotal meetings in the chapter that I wrote, because Vicky has been one of my very dearest friends for over 30 years. And anyone who knows her will say she's probably the most loving person that they know, probably the holiest person. She's all about God. And I had this prejudice that anyone who is loving would never support Donald Trump. Boy, I was wrong. And this is my own polarization, thinking I'm right. Once again,
Mm.
I about this. And then I go to Vicky's house. I was on the tour. She is in New Jersey. And I actually stayed with her for about 5 days in between shows. And yeah, I was surprised when she said, I am voting for Donald Trump. This will be my third time. Wow, I was shocked. But I listened to her. I said, tell me more. Let's have a conversation. And when she was telling me more, I wasn't in my mind preparing a response.
Come on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we do because we think it's a battle. I need to convince you that you're wrong. And I didn't do that. And I've stopped doing it for the most part because I've learned that we can't come together if we're just trying to convince each other
I'm the
of our.
same way. I'm the same way. I always make sure in conversations where somebody potentially, because I support Donald Trump and mostly not looking at the character of Donald Trump, more am I looking for what he stands to believe in that fit my beliefs and, whatever. But I have many
Exactly.
friends that don't. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I have friends that don't support him. Um, but that doesn't take away from our relationship. For me, I believe that it is about character, it is about humility, it is about love and transparency. And I don't think we have anything to prove or anything that we need to be right and we only need to hang out with people who are right. Then how, I mean, in a Christian aspect, James, then how are we supposed to reach the world?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Ashley, because I'm an Episcopal priest. I know that you are a very dedicated Christian as well. And lately I've been thinking maybe I'll stop saying that I'm a Christian and say that I'm a follower of Jesus. And the reason I say that is because so many Christians today will claim to be a follower of Jesus, but they do the exact opposite. They believe
Amen.
the Jesus said for us to love our enemies, do good to those who hate us, bless those who curse us. And the entire gospel is filled with stories of going to the most disenfranchised of their community and loving them. I'm a Franciscan, so I'm a follower of St. Francis of Assisi. His whole life was the same. He found the people that he was most afraid of and he went and served them. At his time, it was the lepers, people who had leprosy. We're in the leper colony. Well, today, the lepers of our society maybe are the people who don't agree with us. For me, when I was, on my soapbox of never Donald Trump, maybe the lepers were people who did vote for Donald. And I had to come off that and realize that these are my brothers and my sisters, and I'm called to love them no matter what. We don't have to agree. There's nothing that says we do, but we are called to love and to respect one another. And I believe that's the only thing that's going to bring us back together.
I agree. I agree. And I stand behind what you're doing. And I am so honored that like God uses me to create the spaces that are open to your message. Because I know in the Christian community, James, it's being in this industry, like I'm with Penguin House. It's like it's really some of the meanest people I've ever met claim to be a Christian. And the ones that are in the industry are so stuck in their own box that they've created a worldly cycle. And then the only difference is they put God on top of it, just the word God. There's no
Yeah.
lifestyle in what they do. They're not trying to make connections with others. Like we call it my moral high ground. Like, have we forgotten who Jesus really is? Like, and are we so scared to be misunderstood? Which brings me to this question, James. What's the first thing you would say to someone who has the opposite opinion about the causes of polarization?
Well, the first thing I would do is not say anything and listen to them. And I would say,
Mm.
tell me more about that. Or what in your life led you to believe that? Let me give you an example. So, a number of years ago, it must have been 2017. So, it was shortly after Donald Trump was first elected president. And this is confession time, I was on Match.com at that time. I ended up meeting a lovely woman and we had a few conversations and I said, let's go out to dinner. So we did. And I tell you, Ashley, it was probably the best first date of my life. We were just so connected. It was so great. So we planned to go out on a second date. The second date was even better than the first. It was so great. And so finally on the third date, we get together and she says, I need to tell you something. I didn't want to tell you this, but my kids told me that I really need to tell you. Now, this is in Portland, Oregon. And I thought, Portland's a very liberal city. She's probably very typical. I know that she has a transgender daughter. She seems fine with that. She has another son who is, I think, worked in a strip club or something. And anyway, so we're sitting there. I said, you can tell me anything. It's not going to change the way I feel at all. She said, okay, good, because I love Donald Trump. And I immediately, I was shocked.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I didn't do what I'm saying that I should do now. I think my first words were, what? But I tell you what, I listened to her. I did say ultimately, tell me more. She began to explain that when she was a young girl, she and her sister, their mother was gone and they lived with their father. Their father went into the prisons and did a lot of work in prisons. And often when men would be leaving the prison and have nowhere to go, he would invite them to come and stay at their house. And bad things happened. It wasn't a very smart move. So she had this image of her father, who was very liberal, as being someone who couldn't be trusted. And then she had this idea, therefore she had an idea of someone like Donald Trump as being someone who would protect her. So hearing her story, it gave me empathy. Now, I could very easily have said, no, I'm not dealing with this. I don't even care what your position is. We're on two different sides. And instead, I chose to listen to her. I talk about this in the book, actually. It was a great learning, just like with Vicky, who had the same experience, and many other people that I met along the road, because as you know, the book is a travel journey. I'm traveling across the country, just talking to people to hear their stories, some of whom agreed with me, some of whom didn't. Like, there's one character in the book named Stan the Man, and he was this enormous truck driver that I met, I think, in Nebraska, and he looked very dangerous. And it turned out he knew who I was, because apparently his wife has read my books and watches some of the things that I've done. So here's this huge truck driver, and he just wants to sit down in this truck stop at midnight and to have a beautiful conversation. Now, if I had judged him and said, no, I'm not interested, I wouldn't have had that good experience. So it really is about getting over our need to be right and just listening to one another, letting go of our position long enough that we can honor one another as brothers and sisters.
So, with that being said, I'm curious, like, if we think of it in like a practical, real sense, right? Because it doesn't, I feel like in some instances in the one story that you talked about was with your brother, it was like, dang it, I can't keep the argument going. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there that they are really passionate about convincing you about how right they are. And that's the way, right? Christians do that, right? Yeah. And so I'm curious, like, what do you say? Like, can you share like a practical step where individuals, and you talk about this in your book, what they can take to, what is it called that you say, to become depolarizing agents with their families, with their communities? Like, what are like some practical steps in that?
Yeah, good question. The first thing I would say is we need more feedback on this so we can develop this program better. So I'm going to invite everyone to go to our website, which is simply de-polarize. So de-polarize.com. And there's a survey. It'll take you 2 minutes to answer 3 or 4 questions. And that's really helping us, because what we want is to have a movement of people who say, want to be part of this shift coming back together. And it begins with very simple things. Listening. We've talked about many of them already. Listening to another person's perspective instead of rejecting them just because they have a different perspective. It has to do with not being in my mind preparing my response while they're still talking, just really being present with that other person. And as we said before, remembering that we have a lot more in common than we have that's different. We all want peace in our lives. We all want our families to be taken care of. We may have different ideas of how to do that. For example, I don't think very many people think that we should just have open, weak borders. I think we all believe in having strong borders. We just have different ideas of how to do that. For me, it's about doing it with compassion. It's about doing that with empathy, just ripping people from their families. And this behavior, to me, this is not following who I believe to be my guide, which is Jesus. He was the one who talked about welcoming the foreigner, doing good to those who are different from us, not just kicking them out. So one of the things, Ashley, that I'm very strong about, and I think this book speaks to it a lot, is something that is foundational to our country, which is the separation of church and state. Today, one of the biggest issues that I see within the Christian frame is Christian nationalism, where they've married the two together. And I don't think Jesus was a patriot. Jesus was not there to follow their idea of what the Messiah was to be, someone who was a strong leader to kick out the Romans. He was there to teach us how to love. He came to teach us about forgiveness and how we can look past our divisions and see one another as the embodiment of love or the Christ. So I think that it's time for us to, in the Christian community, as someone says, if you're a Christian, you'd vote in this way. No, you don't. You do what your soul calls you to do. You don't follow just one dictate based upon a certain number of issues. We have to put love as the foundation. So I'm here in Mexico. You asked me in the beginning. I live in a town called Ajijic, Mexico, and I founded a community here called Namaste Village. Namaste, if you don't know, is a Sanskrit word that means, I'll put it into a Christian context, it means the Christ within me honors the Christ within you. So this is what we try and do. And we have a motto, which is only love, only God, only now. Those three things. If we just put those together, then everything falls into place. And I have a personal kind of credo, which I have a feeling you'll like. My personal credo is, I don't care who you voted for. Come and walk with me. I don't care who you support, left, right, conservative, liberal. Come and love with me. All of those differences don't matter anymore. Let's come together and see that we can do this through love and compassion.
Oh my gosh, I could cry. You are such a breath of fresh air. It's so funny that I literally was talking about this with a friend earlier today. And I'm a very transparent follower of Christ. I can easily be misunderstood and easily confuse, or what I'm told, I can confuse the new Christian because I'm so blunt. Like sometimes I curse, sometimes I cry. I'm honest about my instability. I'm honest about medication. And it's so interesting to me because I don't disagree with them. I'm sure I do confuse people, but at the same time, I feel what the church has done, and I've said it 100 times, James, is that the church has taught us to how to be spiritual. They never taught us how to be human. And I think that is where love truly lies. My big question for you, and it's obvious, but do you believe that choosing love over separation and fear, I believe it. I know you believe it, but can heal our deepest divisions? And would you define some of those deep ones?
It's the only thing that can heal that. Love in whatever form can bring us together, people who have been so polarized and torn apart. And as we said before, it's about not choosing fear, and the need to be right is really the fear of what if I'm not? And opening things up means it doesn't even matter if I'm right or wrong. The only thing that matters is, am I willing to love you no matter what? Those three words are my favorite in the whole world, no matter what. Doesn't matter what you say or do or what you believe. This is really the call of us as Christians to love one another. Jesus said, I give you one final command, love one another as I have loved you. That means that we are to love one another without condition. And if I'm loving you only because you support the people that I support, or you have the same ideas that I have, this is not what we've been called to. We've been called to a radical love, a radical expression. And just as Jesus was a radical expression of love, he didn't do what they expected him to do. He was not the idea that they had about the Messiah, because he was only about loving one another. And these are simple practices. So maybe when the next time I come up, or any of us come up against someone who disagrees with us, even passionately, just to take a deep breath and remind ourselves that I don't need to be right here. I don't need to convince this person. I just need to love them right where they're at. And the good thing about that, Ashley, is that it brings the temperature down. People feel that. When we're just being with them in that non-judgmental way, they feel it. Like with the guy holding that sign there in North Conway, he felt that I wasn't there to argue with him. I was just there to listen to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like magic, the impact that it can have.
I get that too. I think I've always been that way too. Like I have a humble beginning. My life is full of tragedy. And I think because of my beginning, I've always kind of had this kind of Robin Hood, I don't know how to explain it, rebellious state of like watching somebody judge someone else or not wanting to sit with them at the lunch table when you're younger, or, watching somebody be totally misunderstood and judged and then completely divided from a group that's supposed to accept them the most. I will go over there and I will stand with them and I will sit with them and I will hug them and I will love them. and I don't care what anybody thinks. And I think that all of that, you're right, is so rooted in fear. The opinions of others, the things that we believe in, right? Our biases. And so, how did you, James, like, how did you? Because I think one of the hardest things for people to do, I find in a common thread in what I do, is that people don't want to kind of become self aware. They don't want to self reflect. They don't want to really look at their own biases. How did you do that? Can you share like a personal experience where you had to like confront your own biases or assumptions about someone with different beliefs?
The first one that comes to mind is the one we already talked about, and that was with my friend Vicky. But there have been so many more. I think I was very blessed to have been raised in a way that was very open. And I don't know, I shouldn't even say I was raised in that way. I was raised in a very, very Catholic family. And the way what we were taught was, if you're not Catholic, you don't even have a chance. Like, oh, come on. That's so silly. And, and so it was very, you know, isolated. And for some reason, uh, I think as I grew, things began to expand and open within me. And I think a lot of it was, number one, I decided to take Jesus literally and to embrace the radical Jesus, not just the easy teachings, but the radical ones, to love your enemy, right? To let that be the guiding force of your life. And then the other person I mentioned already is St. Francis of Assisi. I don't know how much you know about Francis, but most people, they just know him as the garden saint. He's the one who's always holding the bowl of water in the garden for all the birds to come. But he was so much more. In fact, I'll tell you one quick story about him. Back in 1219, the Crusades were warring out of control, and the leader of the Muslim army, of the whole Muslim world, was the Sultan al-Kamil. And he had said at one point that he would give a Byzantine silver coin to any Muslim that brought him the head of a Christian. So that's how things were then. And the Christian army was going in to defeat him at this fortress called Damietta. And Francis had this crazy idea. He said, I'm going to go there and I'm going to talk to him. I just want to share my experience of love. And I want to listen to him. Everyone thought he was crazy, told him he would be martyred, and it took him 3 tries to do it. And against the advice of everyone, he did. He went to this fortress. He was immediately captured and was going to be executed. But the Sultan was curious about this crazy monk who just walked into their camp and decided to give him the chance to share what he wanted to share. And when Francis did, the Sultan was so moved that he not only let him live, but let him stay there for 2 weeks, and they shared and listened and grew together. And the Sultan actually did offer peace to this Cardinal Pelagian, who was in charge of the Christian force, and they refused it. Their only determination was to destroy all the Muslims. Here's what happened next. It's funny how this attitude of Christ can switch. So the Christian crusaders had moved into kind of a lowland near the Nile. And so the Sultan, being an expert strategy planner, opened the floodgates to the Nile, and the river flows into this lowlands and completely immobilizes the entire Christian army. They can't leave. Their carts are stuck in the mud. The horses can't move, and they're dying one by one of starvation and of disease. So the Sultan sends his soldiers in to feed them. The enemy sends his soldiers in to care for the other. So it's the other that is at play here. We, in our polarization, say anyone who is the other is not to be trusted. Well, this is a brilliant example of how the other, it switched from the Christians to the Muslims, who said, no, we're going to serve the enemy. We're going to love that person by feeding them, by caring for them. By the time the Christian crusaders finally got out of the muck, they said, there's no reason to fight these people anymore, and they just went home. That shows you the power of love. And I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I think between my relationship with Christ and being a follower of St. Francis, these things have all come very natural to me.
Yeah. But they're not natural for others,
No, no, because we're right. There's a feeling of security in being right. I say be insecure. Don't worry about all that stuff. Being insecure, but listening to people you're gonna have a much better experience.
And I think that that helps insecurity when you do. You want to help with your insecurity, listen to people and shut up. I mean, even the Bible says that. The Bible says, be slow to speak and quick to listen. So shut up, okay? Just shut up. That's what I tell my 15-year-old sometimes. If I'm honest, like, just shut up.
I mean, you having 4 kids and you and your husband, I'm sure you learn this lesson over and over again, just having kids and the battles that they are engaged in.
Especially now as a society. And that makes me ask this question. I'm in social media. I'm assuming you are. And I don't let my kids necessarily have social media because of how it is. Would you say that like social media, like the digital age that we're in contributes to this, like contributes to division and the polarization? And do you believe that like that's something that we could create movement about and like really turn around or create
Absolutely.
awareness?
I think you're absolutely right. Social media is a major player in the energy that's ripping us apart because it supports us in believing that we're right. As we mentioned before, the algorithms
The
that
algorithm.
only show us the people who agree with us. They don't show us the other side for us to consider. Maybe there's another something else I can learn here. So that's why I wrote this book because in the maybe, first in the I don't know. I don't know. I have my beliefs, my opinions, but I don't know. Maybe if I listen to you, I'll learn something. But I love you, and if I can just stay to that, who cares about social media? I agree with you. The kids today, it's kind of poisoning their mind right from the start and pushing them to one extreme or the other. Better just to stay right there in the middle where we can love people no matter what.
Amen. Amen. And I think like what I'm hearing, like it takes practice. Like get into a practice where because there's power in the tongue, we have to renew our mind daily. Get into a practice of like, but I don't know. But I love you. But I don't know. But I don't really know. I think that we're so scared of not knowing. That's what created sin in the first place, friends, was the curiosity, which curiosity is natural and it can be a good thing. But the curiosity of wanting to know everything rather than being okay that you don't takes away the whole aspect of faith and relationship and love. Because love is loving unconditionally beyond what we may understand or disagree about someone else, because that has nothing to do with how we love them. And so I'm curious, like, I'm sure you've encountered resistance with this.
Mhm. Sure.
How do you, I'm sure, how do you respond in that? Is it the same practices you do with listening and like,
Yes.
how do you respond in that now?
If someone comes to me, and it comes from both sides, by the way, someone may say, well, I don't like this because X, Y, and Z. Or there have even been people more from the left who say, but we have to stand up to injustice, right? We have to confront what is wrong. And to either side, I'll just try and put into practice what I'm preaching here, which is to say, I don't know. Maybe you're right about this. Maybe there's something I can learn because it just diffuses. And when someone knows that I'm committed to loving you, whether we agree about this or not, wow, it's like magic. It is so helpful in breaking down those walls that keep us apart. As you know, I've traveled to many, many war zones and performed peace concerts, people who are the so-called enemy. And all I've ever found are people just like you, just like me, who want a peaceful world for their families and for their loved ones. And if we could just remember that, and then it takes the heat off of our need to be right, the fear of being wrong. I don't mind being wrong. I'm wrong all the time.
Me too.
Embrace it. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, it's like you're every woman's goal because men don't like to be, women don't like to be wrong. I think maybe when, honestly, if I could speak for a woman, I think that men struggle with not admitting the admission. Women struggle with refusing to be wrong. God talks about how women are going to have a desire to control. And I think we have to really look at ourselves. I think all of us need to stop and say that we don't know. And we need to examine ourselves and be real with who you are. And if you don't know every aspect of who you are, then don't act like it. Don't fake it to make it. Just be honest that you don't know and that you have a lot of growing up to do. I think that humility will bring wholeness and it'll connect us all in a way that can really restore and revive what man is always divided since the beginning of time. And I want to be your friend. Will you be my friend, James? I just want to hang around you,
I would
travel the
love to.
world with you. I just think you're the coolest guy ever. I bet you are like a good papa. Like
I'm a good.
you're a good papa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. My granddaughter just turned 10 a few days ago. And yeah, that's important to me to live this in the most ordinary ways, which is with our families, the people who are closest to us, my brother who always wants to disagree with me, whoever it might be. But yeah, let's stay in touch.
Yeah. Well, you're stuck with me now. I think you are incredible. I think your message is so needed. Like this is been one of my, and I do not say that a lot, but I can say it with confidence. This has been one of my most enlightened and favorite conversations. And I just believe in what you're doing. I believe in what you're saying. And I believe that my audience and my community that I have on social media, on this podcast, anywhere they listen, on this live, this is bringing them value. And so if you met someone, if you can imagine somebody in this community, James, that maybe feels overwhelmed, discouraged by the state of division, feeling hopeless in the world, what advice would you give them?
I would say join this movement. Join the movement with other people from around the world who are saying, I want to make a difference. I want to be a force for coming together or depolarization. And once again, the easiest, quickest way to do it is to go to the website de-polarize.com and help us get more information by filling out the 1-minute questionnaire. That's going to help us to find the easiest and clearest ways to approach each other when we don't agree or when we have an issue. And you can get the book there. You can do whatever. It's on audiobook, Kindle, whatever you need. And Ashley, I'm just so happy to have been able to share this time with you and your audience. It has been a true gift. So thank you for inviting me. And I hope I can come back.
I would be honored if you came back. So, you guys, if you want to pin that in the comment section of that website, Lucy and Heather and Emma, remember, we're not blocking people immediately, we're muting them because it's just not good. And so, I want you guys to also go to that website. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to do it and fill out that questionnaire if you really genuinely want to make a difference. James, where can we get the book? When can we get the book now? Is it out?
Yeah, it's out. Just go to Amazon.com or whatever store or website you like. And if you go to the website, depolarizing.com, there's a little link right there to take you right to it.
And I'll add this all to the show notes as well.
Thank you.
So it'll be available. James, can anybody connect with you personally?
Yeah,
Anywhere?
you find me on Facebook, James Twyman. It says James Twyman, the Moses Code. That'll lead you right to me. Moses
Okay.
Code books.
Awesome. If you guys have questions, now's the time to ask because we want to be respectful of his time. There is somebody that you're probably so tired of saying this. There's somebody that did ask, and I think they want to pin it, what the website is again for this movement.
Sure. It's DE-polarize, POLARIZE.com.
You got it, Heather? Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. James, again, thank you for coming on Confidence and Coffee. Thanks again, you guys. If this brought you any value, if James inspired you, go support him. It takes 2 seconds. Go ask him the questions. If you ever felt safe enough to talk about something, he's your guy. And fill out that questionnaire because he is one of those that genuinely wants to understand people because he cares. And I think that's what we all need to do. So tag him, share. If it encouraged you, tag me, leave ratings and reviews. It's helpful. It takes you maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes. And share this with someone else so we can continue to support the movement as well. If you loved that episode of Confidence and Coffee, stop right now. Go leave a rating, a review. Tell me how this podcast episode inspired you. How did this inspire maybe a friend that you know? I would love to hear your testimony. Maybe screenshot, tag me in it on social media, wherever you are, so I can celebrate and share it with you. These ratings, these reviews, your subscriptions to the podcast on YouTube and anywhere you listen is so helpful to get this community growing, to get this message out. It takes you 2 seconds to make such a huge impact, so don't forget to do that. And I will see you next Tuesday on Confidence and Coffee.